Ask the expert. Ask the expert. Ask the expert, they'll know what to do. Ask the expert. Ask the expert. Ask the expert, they'll know what to do.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert, an online video series hosted by the Rediscovery Centre. We haven't been able to talk to our customers in the same way that we usually do over the last year. And part of our way of trying to answer some of your questions is by creating these series of episodes. And so far, we have discussed furniture, we've discussed cycling, we had a special episode for Heritage Week where we discussed the history of Ballymun. And today, we're going to look at fashion and textile and clothes repair. We've asked you to submit your questions ahead of time, so we're going to answer some of those questions today. And our expert today, she is a costume designer, she is a fashion designer, she's an educator, an upcycler, a textile guru, a sustainability champion, and she's program manager for Rediscover Fashion. It's our very own Arran Murphy. Hi, Arran.
Hi, how are you?
So how have things been for you in the last few months?
Interesting. I think for everyone, like everyone else, it's definitely been an interesting year. But learned some new things and have gotten very good at giving online workshops, which is I think a bonus for everyone because you get to you reach a far greater audience online because there's lots of people that wouldn't actually be able to make it physically to the centre. So that's a kind of silver lining of the whole thing. But I am looking forward to everyone coming back in. And
yeah, absolutely. And do you think that people's attitude around clothes repair and repair in general has changed over the last year?
I think to a certain extent, for sure, because out of necessity, really, people haven't been able to just go out to shops and buy new things when something has worn out or has a rip in it or something. So I think people have had to spend a lot more time with the clothes that they already have, and so have had to consider repairing and maybe have taken on and had a bit more time also to learn the skills to do so. So yeah, I think it's definitely tended towards encouraging people to do more repairs on their own clothes, which is great.
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great positive to take from everything. And so look, we've got 3 examples and 3 questions that were submitted to you today by our followers and our customers. And we picked the best 3 that I suppose highlights several issues that might cover a few different bases. So the 3 most widest range of questions, I guess, is what we picked. So look, we'll get straight into it here. I'm going to show you the first question that was sent in, and it was sent in from Mary in County Kildare. I have this short top that I purchased a few years ago with the intention of making it into a short bolero. I would imagine that I might need to take a small amount off the bottom and cut it down the front. I'm not an amazing sewer, but I can patch things up reasonably well. Would this project be best left to a tailor, or would I be able to give it a go myself? If I do it myself, do you have any top tips?
That is a lovely top, and I can see it would work really well as a bolero. So that's a really nice kind of design creativity there you have. Yeah, I think you're right about it to be shortened a bit. And depending on to what extent you want to alter it and change the design of it, you could go for a very complicated kind of curved front line, or you could just simply go for a very straight, simple center front line. In which case, I think you'd be able to take it on yourself. I do have some tips for doing that. So for shortening it. The best thing to do is to try it on and look at it yourself in a mirror and kind of mark where you want to shorten it to. So either mark it with a safety pin or with a pin. And then this is the same for taking up any hem, actually. You will measure the amount to the mark, so to the safety pin. So say it's 10 centimeters. And then you'll need a bit extra for the hem that you need to do around the bottom. So say you want to leave a 3 centimeter hem, because around the bottom you'll need to do a double hem to hide any raw edges. So you'd leave 3 centimeters. So then you'd actually be cutting only 7 centimeters off the bottom of your top. So once you have that kind of figured out, you're able to mark 7 centimeters all the way around your top from the bottom up. And you'll be able to cut that and then create your hem by pressing the, say, 1 centimeter fold for the first fold, and then a 2 centimeter fold for the second fold. And then you'll have your hem, your bottom hem. For the center front then, you can, so a bolero usually doesn't meet at the very front. So you can just cut it down the center front. And the way you would do that, the way you find exactly the center front is by lining up the side seams. So folding it in half, lining up the side seams and marking where the center front is, where that fold is on the center front. And then I would recommend kind of checking your measurements and checking your center front line by looking at it and measuring in from either side seam. So measuring how long it is between each side seam and then finding the center point there. It's good advice, and it's a kind of a well said phrase that measure twice, cut once. And particularly if you're working off a kind of unique garment, you want to be as careful before you cut anything as possible, because once it's cut, you can't uncut it. So then there's various different ways to finish the front then. And this is the same with any kind of neckline or anything like that. You can, because it's a straight line, you would be able to create a double hem again, so a double fold to hide the raw edges, and that will work well for a bolero because, as I said, it doesn't need to meet at the front. So there'll be a kind of gap where you create your double hem, and that you can decide what measurements you want to use for that. But roughly the first fold would be 1 centimeter, and then you could use maybe a 3 centimeter fold for the next fold. If you wanted to create a kind of curved front at the center front, that's a bit more complicated. And depending on the weight of your fabric, so what your top is originally made from, you might need to put a fusible interfacing on it to give it a bit more structure, because the front of a jacket or a top or even like a button placket would all be reinforced to give it a bit more structure. So that depends on the weight of your fabric. So you can either then create a facing, which is a little bit more complicated, and you might not want to undertake that if your sewing skills aren't very advanced. The other thing you could do would be to add a bias binding. So that's a kind of a trim that would go the whole way around your neckline, and probably the whole way around the bottom of your bolero as well. And that can be a really nice effect. And it can be a bit tricky to learn the technique of that, but once you get it, it's a really nice thing to be able to do. And I think, I remember when I learned how to do it, I put a bias binding on everything then for a while.
Will it take long if you're not a seasoned alterer, let's say?
This is a substantial project, I would say. And I mean, there's easier ways to do it, like just a simple straight line down the bottom or down the center would be the easiest way to do it. And then there's obviously more complicated ways of doing it as well. Great.
Well, hopefully that was helpful. Thanks very much, Arran. And I'm learning loads myself as well, because I always thought it was measure once and cut twice. That's certainly the way I've been doing it anyway. Look, let's move on anyway. Question number 2 comes in from Ruth in County Wexford. I have a beloved pair of Levi jeans that I've worn down along the upper inside seam from cycling to work in them, rubbing off the saddle. I've attempted and botched this type of repair in the past, but would love to know if there's a way of doing it so that they're comfortable, isn't too noticeable, and that it lasts. What do you think, Arran?
Yeah, well, this is a really great repair to learn how to do, because this is such a common wear and tear thing that happens with particularly trousers and jeans. And the rest of the jeans can be absolutely fine, apart from these kind of places where it wears down the most. So there are a few techniques you can use to repair this. If you want it to be, first of all, to say there are two different roads you can go with repairs. You can either go for a visible repair, which is kind of making the wear and tear a feature, and that's there's a whole kind of movement going that way. Or you can try and make it as invisible as possible. If you're going to go, you've said you want to do that. So my recommendations for that would be to choose a thread that is as close to the fabric as possible. And also a patch that's as close to the fabric as possible. So I actually have, I thought this might be one of the things that would come up. So I actually have a kind of example of a few repairs on a piece of jeans. So here, that's an example of the visible repair. If you can see that there. So it's kind of making the hole and the wear and tear a feature of your jeans. Then here is an example of an invisible repair, if you can see that. The thing that you want to do for these type of repair jobs is to actually reinforce the hole kind of around the hole, because that fabric will have kind of worn down as well and mightn't be so strong anymore. So the way you would go about it would be to find a patch that is as close to the fabric color as possible. You want to trim down any kind of loose threads. And then from the back, you want to place the patch underneath the hole and pin it into place. So I have an example here. You can see that. Then I would recommend you baste around the patch. So holding it in place, and that means you can then take out the pins, which makes it much easier to work with if you're using a sewing machine, or even if you're doing it by hand. And you can do these repairs by hand as well. The technique is kind of borrowing from the boro stitch, which is a Japanese kind of traditional stitch, which is a repair technique which reinforces the fabric as well as repairing the hole. So the idea is that you stitch, and I've done it with this one, and you actually can't see it because I've matched the thread so well. You stitch up or across, and then also down across the patch and across the hole, and you're actually reinforcing all of the fabric here around it. So that would be a good technique for doing it. You can do this by hand as well, and it's the same idea that you would kind of create. It's a little bit like darning as well. So you're creating a kind of matrix of thread that is reinforcing. It's attaching the patch and reinforcing the fabric all around it. So there you go.
That's great. Thanks, Arran. And do you have a preference personally on visible or invisible mending, or does it really depend on the piece?
It depends on the piece. It depends on where it is. I recently fixed a pair of my own jeans that was ripped in a similar place. And I think anywhere around there, you don't really want to be drawing too much attention to. So I chose to make that one invisible. But if it was a rip on the front of the jeans, I would probably go for a visible mend.
Great.
Make a feature.
Oh. Thanks very much. Our final question then comes in from Josephine in County Dublin. I bought this jumper dress a couple of months ago online. It's very comfortable, but it's too long. I'm 5'2", so it goes down to my knees. I want to take it up. It has a soft jersey type material, 65% cotton, 35% polyester. I've left it too late to send it back, and the material is nice. How do I take it up without looking like a 5-year-old's art and crafts project? Well, Josephine, you don't have much, you don't have much belief in your own skills. But what do you think, Arran?
Yeah, that looks. It's great to be able to, if you are particularly tall or particularly short. It's great to be able to alter your clothes. So this is a great thing to learn how to do, because it can be sometimes a bit frustrating trying to find things that fit you the way you like them. This is quite an easy alteration. So it's a little bit like the first taking up the hem of the bolero. You would try it on and kind of mark where you want it to come to. So where you want the finishing line, and then you measure up to that. So say it's, for example, 10 centimeters. You'll need to leave roughly 3 centimeters for the double hem at the bottom. One thing when you're doing this kind of thing, because you might actually like the way that it's finished around the bottom, so it's to look at the way that it's already constructed. So if it has a slightly wider hem at the bottom, then you would measure that and follow that and try and make your new hem the same. So replicate that. So use the measurements that have already been used. You would then go around. So whatever your measurements. So I've taken the example of it's 10 centimeters. You want it to be 10 centimeters shorter. You need to add 3 centimeters for the seam allowance. So you're going to be marking at 7 centimeters all the way around. So that's going to be your cutting line. If it is a jersey material, you will need to use stretch needles in your sewing machine, or jersey needles. They're either stretch, jersey, or ballpoint. They're kind of the same thing. So anything that has a bit of stretch in it is actually made by it's knitted, so very, very small knits, and that gives it the ability to stretch. But you need a ballpoint needle to be able to sew that properly. And it always amazes me how, like, the needles look the same, but just because the very tip of it is slightly rounded, it will sew the stretch material, whereas the normal universal standard needles won't. And I always find that kind of amazing.
Well, I've got a question for you, Arran. Why does the eye of a needle have to be so tiny? Surely they could expand it out a little bit. I spend most of my time that I'm trying to stitch something up is trying to get the needle into the hole, get the thread into the hole. I don't understand why it has to be. Is it just so that it makes as less of a hole as possible?
It makes it, yeah, exactly, that's it. And also so that it makes it harder for the thread to actually come back out again. But yeah, it's one of the challenges. I think there's a certain amount of faith needed in it. It's like believing that it is going to go through can help it to go through.
Yeah, just wishing it true. Yeah, well, look, Arran, thanks very much. That was really helpful, and hopefully the people who submitted those questions have been given some sort of a guidance as to their next step forward. Your input's been fantastic, and we are focusing here at the Rediscovery Centre on repair quite a lot over the next while. So if anybody wants to know more about repair, we've got lots of things coming up. We've got a series of videos that we've launched already, and on the 17th of June, we're going to have a webinar around the right to repair. This is really important to have that dialogue at a high level as well as on the ground in terms of championing the right to repair on the individual, because there's a lot of barriers to it, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, like, not everybody now has the skills to do it, and then I suppose, yeah, that is a big barrier, at that level of expertise that is needed, and the fact that things are so cheap and that it's just such an easier thing to do to throw it away and get a new one. So yeah, it's definitely a really important thing to be raising awareness around, because the longer we can extend the lifespan of our clothing, the better, and the more use we'll get out of them, and it's all around better for the environment. Yeah,
absolutely. And on that note, on the 19th of June, we're going to have a series of hands-on virtual live workshops teaching different skills and how to repair everything from bicycles to clothes, textiles, and we're going to have a live Q&A with lots of a panel of experts and get people to submit their questions on any old item that they might have at home. So please check us out on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, website for more details. This has been the latest episode of Ask the Expert. This has been Arran Murphy. Thank you very much for your time, Arran, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Ask the expert. Ask the expert. Ask the expert. They'll know what to do. Ask the expert. Ask the expert. Ask the expert. They'll know what to do.